Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another anime review, and this time I'm covering a manhwa related anime which is called Tower of God. Before I get started, I'll let you know that this has 13 episodes. I will give you a bit of a synopsis of each episode, plus the synopsis of the main series, to which the synopsis is, reach the top and everything will be yours. At the top of the tower exists everything in this world. All of it can be yours. You can become a god. This is the story of the beginning and the end of Rachel, the girl who climbed the tower so she could see the stars, and Bam, the boy who needed nothing but her. I'll now move into the synopsis of the first episode, to which, after I give the synopsis of the episode, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. So episode 1 is titled Ball. She wanted to see the stars, but he wanted to be with her. What do you desire that you would do to sort of like basically bring in the synopsis of what we talk about in the main synopsis? And this is where we learn a little bit about Bam and also a little bit about the character of Rachel. But it's only so much we learn about the character of Rachel, but we're seeing this mainly through Bam's eyes. And as we start to see him, he's sort of like eventually called into this tower, or the Tower of God. And the way the Tower of God is sort of like presented in this, it's reminds me a little bit like the Tower of Babel. But not only is it sort of like applying the Tower of Babel, but it's also applying some concept ideas within this tower as you sort of like go further on in the series. That it also takes some notes from like Laputa Castle in the Sky, because of some of the levels that you see in the story. And that's just something that I've picked up through watching the series. So moving into episode 2, it is 3/400s, to which Bam overcomes head-on's test. So he's given a test to which he has to sort of like get past a monster, and he's given an item called the Black March. And we learn about this, and along the way we do learn that there are people who want to sort of like retrieve these March series types of weapons throughout the run. And with this, he starts to meet like new characters along the way, one being the character of Rak, the other one being the character of Kun, plus many others that we meet. Next is episode 3, which is sort of like after the next lot of tests in the second episodes. This test revolves around just picking a particular door in a time frame of 5 minutes, or actually they're given 10 minutes, but if they don't pick anything in 5, they fail the test. So we also have sort of like Kun and the others that are participating together as they go through this test together, as now that they are sort of in groups, because we have Kun, Bam and Rak, to which Rak is sort of like a dinosaur type character. He's crazy character, but he loves a bit of a fight, he loves a bit of a brawl, and we do get to see and understand that with his character. As we start to move into the next, I guess, 2 episodes. One is called episode 4 and 5. Episode 4 is titled The Green April, and And episode 5 is titled The Crown's Fate. For the synopsis for those, and did I cover the synopsis for free? I don't think I did, but I'll cover it now. So it will be 3, 4, and 5, so you hear the synopsis of them there. When the test director Han Sung-yu announces the subject of the test, Rak throws a tantrum, and okay, we get a little bit more as to what's happening there when you're like checking it out on Crunchyroll, but Crunchyroll still need to fix that up so you get to see like the whole thing that it's saying, especially on anything. Next is titled next is the Green April one, which is at the end of the first round of the Crown game. Anak, wielder of an ever-changing sword. So we learned that there's a princess in there who wields a changing sword, and this sword is called the Green April, which is sort of like a part of the Black March series, or basically the March series of weapons. And we learned that each weapon is slightly different and works in accordance with sort of like the wielder, or how the wielder is able to use it. Next is the Crown's Fate, to which sort of like still links to the Crown game in episode 4. Bam's team defends the Crown from looming regulars as they charge into battle. And with this, we see that in these particular 2 episodes, there's a test which is called the Crown game, to which the Crown must be kept for about 5 minutes, but in keeping this crown, they must actually defend it from people who seek to take it from them. And of course, we do get to see the characters defend their position, and upon the position, we do move a little bit further on in the story, to which is called position selection. Now, in position selection, it gives us the synopsis of what will Kun do after meeting Rachel. The position selection begins despite after struggling. Now, this takes place after the Crown event, to which in this particular Crown event, we do see Bam sort of like relinquish his position as sort of like on the Crown to sacrifice to save his friend Rachel, who we meet at the beginning of the story, or we meet in the beginning that connects to his story. And whilst this is occurring, we get to see what the other players are doing, or what the other candidates are doing, as they too try to seek to reach the top of the tower. We then move into sort of like this position selection, to which after this event, these characters sort of now have to undergo certain tests as to sort of like what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. And sort of like this will lead up to the next lot of tests that are about to occur. Episode 7 is titled Lunch and Tag. Several days have passed since Anak and Endorsi's feud has come to a total stop as the next. And this sort of like moves over into 7 and 8, because there's like a special test called like Tag. And in this, they have to sort of like chase one of the test directors and sort of like he tags one of them, but they got to find a way to sort of like tag him back. This plays out sort of like between the teams once again, and of course one of the teams wins, one of them loses, and this is where we move into episode 8, which is titled Kun's Strategy. Team A is awed by the overwhelming power of the Ranker. So the Ranker is sort of like one of the test directors in this, and you can see in this it sort of feels a little bit like Hunter x Hunter, in like some of the things that it sets up tests-wise for the characters. As we jump into episode 9, it's called The One-Horned Ogre, to which it gives a synopsis is, my plan worked. With this declaration, Endorsi kicks her own teammate, and what was the true intention of like some of her plan within the story. And we get them starting to meet like another character, which is sort of like another princess. And one is, of course, called out as a bit of a fake, whilst the other one is not. Then we have episode 10. Now, there's 13 episodes in all for this particular series, which is called Beyond the Sadness. Rachel suffers a grave wound. How will she feel about reuniting with Bam? As there are as the various things are occurring in the time being. And in this, we start to see things are being planned and set out for another test involving those who wish to climb the tower. And whilst this is being done, of course, we have Kun, we have Rak, we have like some of the early characters that we meet, along with many new characters which I cannot name, but they're pretty good nonetheless. And in this, Bam is sort of like counted as an irregular, but we're going to learn a little bit more about Bam's character once we reach episode 13. So as we start to move into episodes 11 and 12, this now moves into sort of like the next section of the test, to which many of the participants that are now participating now performing this test. So not only Rachel can reach the top of the tower, but also Bam. But there is a bit of a twist that happens in one of the episodes. I can't quite release that just yet. So in episode 11, it's called Underwater Hunt. Another test is held to reach the top of the tower, but much has been lost and important things are taking place. To which in this, we start to see the first part of the test, and we get those who are sort of like seen as spear throwers, like working together. Those that are classified in sort of like the other areas, in sort of like their particular ranking system, because with their ranking system, they have people who sort of like specialize in close combat, others who specialize in range combat, those who specialize in Shinsu training, to which we learned that Shinsu is sort of like people who can actually connect to, I guess, the life force of this universe. And we see that there are also some people who are actually a little bit jealous as to even Bam being able to access this life force of this universe, even upon his entering within the tower. So we move into part 2. So whilst they are moving sort of like the fight on, I guess, some leagues or on this particular test field, we move into part 2, which is all manner of thoughts and intentions intersect at the chaotic final testing ground. So we see at this testing ground that where we have a look at some of these places, that there are sort of like some groups or hordes of a sort of species to which they can either choose to fight them or bring something to fight them, to which we do seem to see something like that play along the way, and until finally we reach episode 13, which is called The Tower of God. Now, in this episode 13, we actually get to see from the view of the character of Rachel and how she sort of like gets drawn into the tower. But as she turns up at the tower, she learns that the tower wasn't actually calling her, and you can certainly see how envious, and I guess the word is, to put it bluntly, bitchy, selfish, and she wanted nothing at all to sort of like do with Bam in reaching the top of the tower, but only to learn that the tower wasn't actually calling her, it was actually calling him. And with this, we learned that the tower is sort of like calling Bam as a bit of a savior of sorts. So, as this is occurring, she gets to she gets to see some things take place, including once Bam is called to the tower, even some of the tests that he will sort of like endure and performing. So pretty much she gets a bit of an insight or a bit of a vision from one of the key test directors of sorts. And with this, we can still see that she still desires to reach the top of the tower. So this test director puts up a thing for her to do, to which she has to, that's right, kill Bam. But is this left of what happens with Bam within the story? The answer is no, because as we start to reach towards the end of the story, and upon finishing the last episode, it was really nice to see things take place through Rachel's eyes, because a lot of this we've been seeing happen through Bam's eyes, but also what she would do to reach the tower. And we start to see how things start to fall into place for her so she can betray Bam. As we start to reach the end of like seeing of like all the stuff that happened through her eyes, and for things to fall into place for her to do what she needed to do, we do finally return to the character of Bam, to which we do end up seeing what happened to Bam after he was sort of like pushed off the platform to try to help reach something in relation to the tower, to sort of like continue on. And of course there are some people sort of upset as to wondering what has happened to Bam, but they still continue to sort of like help Bam in completing his journey by helping her reach the top of the tower. Once we return back to the character of Bam, he's met up with a particular person who offers to sort of like train him to sort of like use the art of Shinsu and whatever else, and even to sort of like learn all the truths to which the tower has to offer. But the thing is, even though he's been betrayed, you can still that he still has love for his friends, but also for Rachel as well, even though he doesn't fully understand what led her to doing what she did. And we also get an interesting statement from him, which brings across that the answers aren't going to be found at the top of the tower, which makes one think, okay, what's going to be happening in the next season? And then it sort of sets things up, or it sets a little bit up for what looks to be a bit of a time skip for this particular series. So I have slowly started reading through the webtoon of this, and I look forward to reading through more of it. It's definitely going to be interesting when the second season of this comes out. Whether I'm around to review it or not, I got no idea. We'll see what happens when that time happens. So jumping into the next thing, and that is the area of my afterthoughts of this series. And I must admit, even watching through all these 13 episodes, there were just so many characters. And with many of these characters, they also have their own story as well. We learned that there are also members of, I guess, Tower royalty that take place within the story. And also some of their backstories. But the main story that is of concerned, we also get to see a little bit in relation to Kun's story, and it looks like he ends up meeting a cousin along the way. And it would be interesting to see a little bit more. The character felt like a bit of a cousin because he looked like him, but he too was also treated like a bit of an outcast. It would be nice to see if next season we get to see a little bit more as to what happened with those two characters. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. Whether it happens in the manhwa or not, the manhwa webtoon or not, I don't know. Moving to other things, sort of like within this, if it's one thing I really quite enjoyed in this series, it is most definitely, and I mean most definitely, the opening soundtrack to this. And when I finish off this review, no doubt I'll have the soundtrack run at the end. In the English as well as the Japanese, so, or the Korean, I mean. And it's actually quite amazing as to how good the soundtrack is for this. Moving into the next thing, and that is the area of the rating of the characters. So I guess the key main characters in this story would have to be, number one, Bam. Second would probably be Rachel, but I'd also class Rachel as a bit of a supporting character. Of course, we have the character of Rak, because Rak is also an early character that we meet along the way, and also Kun, because they sort of like form the group, or the main group that Bam sort of like teams up with within the story. So looking at those three characters, overall, I give an 8 out of 10. Moving into the area of the supporting characters, so we have like the other characters that would be counted as, I guess, the rankers, directors, or people who make up like the important framework in the story. I also give an 8 out of 10. Next is the area of the animation. Looking at the animation compared to the anime, to the manhwa, I think the animation is actually quite good, and it works not bad and alongside with the manhwa, if not better in some places, even in the way the perception is brought across within the story. I understand that they had a lot to cover just for this first part, and I think for it, I'll just give it a 7.5 out of 10 just for the time being. It might be higher in the next season. Next is the area of the soundtrack. I really enjoyed the soundtrack. A straight 8 out of 10 from me, as I liked what they did with it for both opening and ending. And even as you finished off, or even as the first season finished off for this story, we ended up finishing off with the opening theme song for this particular story. And I really enjoyed that too. And that's why I give that an 8 out of 10 overall. Next is, last but not least, the area story-wise, to which I'd actually like to give this story an 8 out of 10, because I did enjoy learning about the character of Bam, his connection with Rachel, but not only his connection with Rachel, but also as he starts to connect and make new friends along the way, but also learning that the tower has a bit of a purpose for him. Like, what makes him so special along this journey? And this is why I'll stick to the 8 out of 10. So, last but not least, thanks for listening to this review. Should you really enjoy this review, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day. Until then, stay tuned for what's about to be, that will be playing next, right after this.
I see it clear, the stairway reaching up to the sky. It seems so far away now. Tell me something, how much higher can we go from you? We're changing the game. And yeah, I wanna know if it is only your face. Don't have the answer, but we keep on climbing, breaking boundaries and setting the pace. And we ain't never gonna stop until the world just stage.
Yeah, you must said it is impossible. Stronger together, we're turning into probable. And in the darkest shadows, we'll be shining. So hold on tight, cause it kill every single fight.
Clear the stairway, reaching up to the sky. It seems so far away now, wondering if I'll ever get all the way to the end. But it's a risk I gotta take. I keep on running all day and night. Can't sleep even if it kills me.
Never let you go, never let you go.
I won't give it up until I see the light. I go.
No, turn it back.
I'm not gonna fall.
I'll rise till I reach the sky.
Never let you go, never let you go.
I won't give it up until I see the light. I go.
텐타클 하늘 가라타에 소비에 따뜻하이든 오미야게이다 코노모이요 세계라레나이 데스티니 코노미야테루마데 스베테 오카게테
Never let you go, never let you go.
살아나는光が照らすまで I go.
Can you tell it どこまで俺たちがいけるかって誰もが知らないレベル目指して答えなら